to see more people in America own a racehorse. I don't think they have any clue how much fun you can have owning a racehorse. And so the purpose of this seminar is to help develop a system where we can kind of communicate with people who are not lifetime horse people. And you know, most of the people with money today in America, and contrary to what you hear on the evening news, there are 10 million millionaires in America. Most of the people with money in America with enough money to buy a racehorse have never been around an animal bigger than a yellow lab. And I use the term K to 12. K to 12 is when your kids first go to school in kindergarten, and in 12th grade, you kick them out of the house and send them to college 700 miles away and hope they've learned enough from K to 12 that they don't get in trouble and that they spend your money well. Well, that's kind of what we're talking about today. K to 12 for horses, because these are the things you do before you give it to the final trainer. This would be for people who didn't own horses, but this was something that you need to reinforce every day if you're around them. Horses have three basic things that are in their DNA. First, they are herd animals. They would much rather be with other horses than with you. And they never really get over that. You take a horse out of a field, it'll scream and yell and have a fit if you take it away from its friends, and you all know that. And dogs are not like that, by the way. Dogs will forsake their own kind for your love. Horses won't. They are flea animals. When a rider gets dropped, generally, their first instinct is to spin around and run away from danger. That's their nature. They can't help it. Generally, when a rider gets dropped, it's when that horse sees something that scares it, and when it spins, they drop the rider and run the other way in the track, and somebody turns the siren on. It goes whoop, 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 and that's what happened. And then the final thing is they're creatures of habit. They don't like change. If you take a gray mare, every day for a month, you take the gray mare in, put her in the first stall, and the bay mare in the second stall, and then one day you put the bay mare in the first stall and the gray mare in the second stall, they don't like it. That's it. So you've got this 15 to 24 month period in the middle there where you are doing K through 12. 8 steps, simple steps. If you were doing process engineering at a factory, you would do these 8 steps. The first one is basic obedience. A horse has to have basic obedience. There is no way a 150-pound man can handle a 1,100-pound horse unless you've taught it to lead. The second one is getting on its back. Again, you're fighting the basic instincts of this horse, which is don't let anything get on my back. That's the flea part in it. The third, then you take a step. Then once you're on their back and they're not going to go crazy and blow up and try to kill you, then you go to an arena or a paddock, but something small, and you begin to teach them control, how to use their mouth, what you drive them with. You're putting a steering wheel on them, and you're putting brakes on them. Then if you get through that, and then you begin to take them out on a farm someplace and gallop them, because this is a lot cheaper. This is what I do. This is a lot cheaper than galloping on the track. I don't have to do it every day. I don't have to muck a stall. I can turn them out after I get done galloping them. And so it's cheaper, and they're going to have to go through it anyway. Then there's something I call tracklimate, which is a combination of the word track and acclimate, tracklimate. Because living on a track is totally contrary to a horse's nature. They go in a little 12 by 12 stall. They're out in all kinds of chaos and noise. It's not what they're used to, and it takes a while. It's like when you get your first apartment in New York and you've been living on a farm. This is different, folks. Well, that's the way it is for a horse. Then you go to real race training, serious race training. They're through the learning curve. They're into the real thing. Then I have 2 more steps. One is actual racing. Once a horse has been through its 4 or 5 races, they're a different horse than the horse that's just coming up and has never started. Okay, that's one thing. And then one thing, the 8th step is something I don't think we do very well in America, and that is take care of our veteran horses. Run them for 25 or 30 or 40 races, but you can take care of those horses very differently. They don't have to be at the track all the time. There are 3 aspects to the development: mental, physical, which is muscle and bone, and cardiovascular. You have to, if you go too fast, you'll break the horse, and that costs a lot of money. If you go too slow, that's a lot of extra months of training, and that costs money. So basically, the key is to have somebody that's handling your horse that can read, am I going fast enough to progressively build this horse, or if I'm going too fast and I'm going to break it?
Yes, I mean, step one is the basic obedience. And this is something, I know this seminar is weaning through winning, but really it's birth through winning. That didn't sound as good. And really, we work with these foals every day. From the day they're born is the very first day they start being trained to be a racehorse. And you have to do that. You have to be with them every single day. And that's something, you know, we're not the only farm in Kentucky that do this, but, you know, it's really, really important that we are here. We you know, obviously we let them be a horse. They're out in the field for the majority of the day. We bring them in and we just handle them. You know, we touch them, we touch their legs, we touch their feet, and we pick up their feet. And it's really important to teach these horses to stand still, because later on, when you need them, when they grow and they develop and they start to learn how to push you around, you need to have taught them young to stand still when you pick up their feet, so that you can get them trimmed by the farrier, or else you're going to have all sorts of problems. And you know, that's just one of the most basic things we do. So I mean, at the farm, we're very, very insistent on every horse must stand still for the farrier. It just, you know, if a horse leaves our farm and it doesn't stand still for the farrier, then we've had a problem, you know, and we should have solved that. But, you know, we have them stand still for, get their temperature taken. Every horse is brought in every morning. They're temped, they're fed, and they're allowed to, you know, just lie down, relax, and enjoy being a horse until they go back out in the field and, you know, back with their buddies. And that's kind of the thing, you know, we're talking about. You have to be really patient with these horses. You know, every horse is not the same. It's not a machine. You can't program it to do the things you want it to do. So each horse you have to treat like an individual.
This is standard on most of the farms. This is the way babies are raised.
I think one of the good things to point out here is that our goal from day one with this foal is thinking about what they're going to have to endure at the track, and the more that we can get them used to at the farm, and this goes through every bit of everything that we do, but especially from day one, the more we can get them acclimated and acquainted to what they're going to run into at the track, the easier the life is going to be on them there. If you guys have ever been on the backside and seen a farrier outside of the barn, if you've ever been to the racetrack on the backside and see a farrier in a barn, it's a very dangerous looking situation, and you get some horses that really act up, and you can get a really bad injury out of that. But if we can get them acquainted with that and comfortable with that from day one, and just get past that, we think that we can make a better horse out of that. And that goes through to even the weanlings. When they come in the mornings, they walk over, you know, a plank of plywood every day, and that gets them used to stepping on something that's a little uneven and a little uncomfortable and makes a little bit of noise. And that transfers into, you know, when we first try to get them onto the trailer. There's a picture here of us weighing our horses. We weigh our horses every month. And that not only gives us a guide to go by as far as nutrition, but it also teaches that horse to, you know, to trust in the person handling it, and also to trust that, you know, when they go to load onto a trailer, it's something that they can be more comfortable with.
Like Josh said, you know, no matter what the end goal with our clients are for the horse, whether they're going to sell as a weanling, sell as a yearling, or take this horse right through and race it, you know, we always, as a farm, we have our end vision is this horse is a racehorse. And, you know, we work them, we can sell them at any stage, but we constantly remind ourselves that this is a racehorse. This isn't just a commodity for sale. You know, at the end of the day, it has a job, and we have to allow it to get there.
Well, step two is riders up, and for people who've never seen a thoroughbred broken, it's a much quieter, gentler system. Slowly, you want that horse to learn to allow a human to sit on its back. Usually we break them on a farm because the barn that they grew up in is the barn where you break them, and they're very comfortable. And when you're done, you put them right back out in the paddock. Okay, guys?
This is a photo of us saddling some horses on our farm, and one of the things that I tell clients or prospective clients is, to me, one of the best ways to start out these babies, because they are still babies, one of the best ways to start them out is in a facility that they're comfortable with. As stressful as the track can be, being on a farm or a facility like what we have allows you to not only have the horse feel like it's at home, but also get a little bit done every day. So that when we bring those horses in, they'll come in the mornings, they'll get looked over, they'll get fed, they'll get temped, they'll get any medicines that they need, and then they'll do a little bit of training. We'll ask them to do a little bit for that day, and then at the end of the day, they go back out with all their friends, what they're used to. They go back out in the paddocks and the fields, and they can relax, and it's no big deal. And then when they come in the next morning, they're ready to do it again. They're ready to do a little bit more, and it seems to really be a good transition from just being on the farm to getting into some sort of training situation. So these are some pictures of us. We did this in the round pen just because it was a better area to take photos. But these are just some pictures of what it's like the first time you saddle a horse. You get that saddle on, you'll start to cinch it up a little bit, move them around, just make sure that they're comfortable with what you're doing. The next photo will show you an important part, and this is called bellying, and this is the precursor to getting on their back if you don't want to get dropped off. So you take it a little bit at a time. One of the best ways that I've heard this explained is that if you have kids, or when you were a kid and you didn't want to eat your vegetables, did your parents get you to eat your vegetables by giving you a bowl full of peas and saying you've got to eat all that and you can't leave the table until you do? Or would it have been better if they gave you 2 or 3 peas for that night and said, eat these and then you can go on and you can play? And then the next day they give you 4 or 5, and then they built on that, and by the time you know it, you're eating your peas just fine, and it doesn't phase you anymore. So
You grow up big and strong.
yeah, and then you big and strong like Popeye. So that's what we try to do with these babies. We just ask them for a little more every day, and they don't really know the difference. They're happy to do it. So we don't want to overwhelm them by any means at the farm by asking them to do too much, because once you go backwards, it's hard to turn that around. Once you create an issue, it's hard to reverse that. These are just some photos of us, tacking up in the stall. What we'll do, like Ed said, we'll get most of this done in the stall just because it's a safer environment. The horse is used to being in that stall. That's kind of their home base. So we'll do a lot of that in there. We'll get the riders up in there. We'll start to walk around. We'll lead them a little bit. We'll let them do some circles in the stall until the rider feels comfortable that the horse is more than ready to go out and do some walking in the barn.
What's really important was actually just what I was going to say. I didn't even know that was the next slide. The end of the day, turnout. You do this, you bring them in, and like Josh said, we do a little bit of work, a little bit more with them each day, as much as they can handle, and then turnout. And they, instead of being in their stall overnight, worrying about, what did that guy just do when he came into the stall and tried to get on my back? That was really scary. And they sit there and fret and fear. They turn out, they're in company, and forget about it. And the next day they come in. It's such a positive reward for them. And then they know that, okay, yesterday was fine. The guy got my back, but at the end of the day, I still went out and played. And it's all about that positive reward, and just being patient with every horse. Each one's different, and there's no time scale that says that you have to do this in 1 week or 3 days or any length of time. You have to get into the mindset of each horse and go along with them.
And one of the good points that Steve always brings up is how many miles does a horse walk at night as it's turned out? You always make this point. 25 miles at night on average a horse will walk just grazing. And for these babies, the whole point behind these horses is for us to develop bone, develop muscle, and strengthen soft tissue. And they're going to do that out in the field by themselves. They're going to continue to graze and walk, and it's just a much better environment for them than being in a stall.
Okay, step 3 is kind of obvious, but then this is what you're putting the steering wheel and brakes on a horse. Okay, that's really what you're talking about. You basically want to take them out and put them in a small paddock or a round pen or an arena, and basically that's where you're going to teach them. Hopefully they'll stand while you put the rider on them. They learn control of the bit. You can let them begin to jog a little bit, even gallop a little bit, hobby horse later on. You teach them to stop, what that means. And then figure eights is the common way everybody does it, reverse figure eight. Well, that's the way these horses are. You want to do it as long as they're doing it right and they're learning, not all day.
This is a very mental aspect of getting the horses started, more so than physical. We're not really trying to accomplish much physically at this point, but the way you have to think about it is that for the horses, we've done a lot with them these past 3 weeks leading up to this. But this is really the whole point, is to get them guiding, and this is what we're going after, the riding and the guiding and putting some miles on them. But it's the mental aspect of it. We want them to learn to carry their heads properly. We want them to communicate through what we're trying to teach them with the bit. So it's very important that we get our point across, and then once they get to that point, we stop on them. You don't want to wear the horse out by jogging it for 25 minutes because you're trying to do fitness at the same time. You want to get your point across, get a few good laps with the horse in good frame, and then just stop on them, pat them on the head, say, good job, let's do it again tomorrow. And then tomorrow, maybe you work on something that they didn't do so perfect the day before. These are just some photos at the farm. This is a photo of once we get out in the field. You'd be amazed at the difference between doing figure eights in the arena and then when you take them out to the field, it's like culture shock because, they see horses out there. They see horses running around out there. It's free range. There's no, when you're doing figure eights, there's a trail for them to follow. But when you get out in the field, it's just another mind-blown experience. So it's the same thing here. It's all the mental aspect. Can we take it out of the arena and still get the same result as far as keeping a good framed horse?
You also want to take them out by themselves at this point. You're going to have to separate them at some point. At some point, they're not going to be able to go out in groups. So if you've got them in the small arena or the paddock, at some point, you've got to take individual horses and do it.
Also, one of the things that, we're always, at the end of the day, our end goal is we're trying to produce racehorses here. And even from them very early stages, when you're just doing the figure eights in the arena, we make one horse overtake another. And it's that kind of mental strength that they're not afraid to go past another horse. You don't want them to be on the track and go, well, I've never been in the lead. I don't know how to get past another horse, So you have to constantly be working towards building that end product, one step at a time.
These are just some photos of the farm. This is our all-weather gallop that we just finished in November. These are actually some babies we're working on right now. And another big step to this process is when you're in the arena, excuse me, and you're finished for the day. You've taught them their lesson for the day. Each time we stop, we don't just go straight to the gate and we're done. We take a second, we let them breathe, we stand in a line, just like they would at the gap in the mornings. The gap can be one of the most dangerous places on the track. But these horses, as soon as they finish their work, they know we're just going to stand here for a second, relax, kind of reflect on what we did, and then we're going to exit and we're going to walk back from the barn. And it's really good for them.
Okay, next step on the farm is what I call a power-up. So it's on the farm gallops. Now you did the steering and brakes was all mental. That you weren't trying to build anything. Now you're trying to build power, muscle and bone, and cardiovascular. Turn out after work. This is where they begin to see the starting gate, the trailer, the strange stalls, the stressing. So
this is another photo of our track, and I think one of the big points to make once you get to this point is I think that there's advantages to both. There's advantages to being on the track, and then there's advantages to starting this on the farm. The advantage to being on the farm is being able to keep the horse balanced. In a young horse's career, there's a lot of things going on. There's a huge learning curve, and at the same time, you're building that muscle mass and that bone for the first time. And I think that keeping the horse balanced and building the horse balanced is a big deal. And nothing against the racetracks in America, but you can only gallop one way. And when you're on a farm, you can pretty much do whatever you can draw with a pencil. You can do that for the day. On the farm, we have a 1.5 mile turf gallop. The first 3/4 of a mile is more like a trail ride that gets the horses, gets them warmed up. There's some uphills, there's some turns, there's some downhills. And then the last half mile, there's a 3/8 of a mile flat stretch right along the creek bed, and that's all turf. And then we will finish out up the hill. And the idea behind finishing out up the hill is that when you come around that turn and you hit the stretch, that's the hardest part of the race. And we want that horse to know the work comes then. We're not hitting that turn and galloping out. That's when we're going to finish strong. So we try to use the hill as, this is workout time. The rest was a warm-up. This is when we're going to do our work. And when we built our all-weather gallop, we wanted to emulate a lot of the things that we liked about our grass gallop, which was the stimulation between the trail riding and then the mental stimulation of the surroundings, the fences, the trees, the creek, stuff like that. And then we wanted to have an uphill portion where we could also not only train some babies on it, but also get some horses off the track that have some issues or coming back off of a freshening or something like that, and really get that horse good and balanced before it goes back to the track for training.
This is their starting gate that they've got on the farm. So you begin to walk them through the starting gate and get them going on that. Again, that's a very unnatural thing for a horse, and Chris McCarron's going to talk about that some later when we get up here, when he gets up here.
Going back to the starting gate is something that, as we've progressed and grown, we've taken a lot of feedback from the trainers we send horses off to. And a lot of trainers will tell you a lot of different things, but one of the big things has been with the starting gate is basically that they want a horse to come to them that can just fall asleep in the starting gate, and they can take it the rest of the way from there. And when these guys come up, I'll let them kind of interject on that a little bit. But we found that if you try to do too much in the starting gate, you don't want to take a step back. And it's easier just to teach the horse at the farm to get in the starting gate, to stand in it, to know that horses are in the starting gate with it, and that it comes out the front end, and then let them take it from there. Because those are the real professionals. The last thing we want to do is screw a horse up before it goes to the track. So we try to do as much as we can in the starting gate without taking a step backwards.
On the farm, we're fortunate enough to have heart rate monitoring as well. And, it's a useful tool because you're able to take a heart rate of that horse on that day, and you can see a progression of fitness in a horse. So when you're trying to build up the, your cardiovascular system, instead of simply, relying on one, just a visual clue, which is, it's useful. You obviously see if the horse goes around the track and he comes back and he's not breathing very hard, then yes, he's fitter than last week when he came back and he was. But this gives you actual metrics. Like you can put this into numbers and you can really see. It's like, well, this horse seems to be going just as well as this horse, but he does it a lot easier on his heart. So you go, well, this horse, maybe he can do a lot more. And you're able to start putting, numbers and actual sort of physics against what is physically just going on with the horse. So, I mean, it's a useful tool, and it's something that we've just started doing it, and it's something that we're really looking, to try and expand.
Go back to that 1 second there. If you guys can see the top slide there, the red line is the heart rate. The blue line is the speed that you're going. So when we're looking at these charts, we want the heart rate to emulate the speed. If it's anything other than that, something's going on. Whether it's the horse has an abscess, or whether we're doing too much work, or whatever, we can tell that something wasn't right for that day. And then down in the right-hand corner, that's an actual satellite picture of our Gallup facility. So what I can do, and what works good for me as the person who communicates with the clients, and what is really beneficial for the clients, is that rather than me saying the horse did great today, he went 1.25 miles and it didn't take anything out of him, that doesn't really tell them much. So if I can say, here's an email, watch your horse work, and they can watch him go around, and they can watch that heart rate, they can see when that heart rate spikes, and then they can see after the workout that he recovered 80% of his heart to 80% to his normal resting heart rate within a minute, that that horse is well within his means. Or maybe we didn't do enough that day, but it's right there in front of them. What I say can be misconstrued, but this is information that's right in front of them.
This is my envy here. This is a picture they showed me of building their new track over at the farm. Boy, I'd love to have one of these. Not going to happen in my case, but it's a beautiful track to have that on a farm. What's the surface?
It's the surface itself is a synthetic. It's never been used before in Kentucky as a racetrack surface. It's used primarily for arenas, but it's a very simple surface. It's just sand, carbon fiber, and rubber, and it's working great for us. We're getting great use out of it, and really, our track, we're incredibly fortunate to have a facility like this. But we didn't try to build a racetrack. There's enough racetracks around Kentucky. We didn't need to build one on the farm, so we built something different. It's really like you know, it's a one step up from the field, because you can't use the field every day. You know, it's sometimes too wet, too slippy, it's too hard. This, you know, we're able to use, and you know, it gives us that advantage that, you know, we're not going to lose as many days training as if you didn't have this kind of facility. And you know, we're very fortunate to have something like this.
And what we're doing with this is not getting horses fit for racing. What we're doing with this is we're developing babies so that they can go to the track and have a successful career, and we're rehabbing racehorses. So the point to rehabbing a racehorse is, why would we want to do the same thing that they're doing on the track? You know, when you're getting a horse back into race fitness and race conditioning, we want to work every single muscle group. And the only way you're going to do that is by going each way, going up and down. And, you know, this is kind of a cross-training course for us. And we'll get up to a good gallop on this, but once the horse is fit enough to go to a breeze, we're going to go to the track with them. But we want to develop a good base so that the trainers can take it from there.
We're going to leave the farm. We're going to go to the track. I'm going to bring the trainers up that we...
Before you go any further, I just want to say, like, everything we do in the farm, you know, we couldn't do without the help of, like, the fantastic team we have there. We've got, you know, great riders. Kevin, the trainer, you know, we've got just a great team of farrier, vet, and it's all a team effort. You know, it's not just us two guys sit here. We just do the shouting and, you know, stand up here and make it all sound good. But there's a real team of people there, and, you know, it's the dedication of that team that makes the thing work.
And he's completely right. And we're admittedly still growing in this process, and we're not above any kind of advice that we get back from our trainers. Actually, we actually ask for advice from our trainers as far as, what did you like about the horse? What didn't you like about the horse? You know, we're still trying to grow on our own as well. So, you know, it's a great group, and we're open to new ideas, and we're, you know, it's really working out well. So,
Thanks, guys. Step 5 is what I call tracklimate, and this is where you get mental, physical, and cardiovascular all together. This is basically going to the racetrack. I would love to be able to do it on the farm. I don't think you can. I think you got to go to the track. And I've been on a couple small training facilities that didn't have a lot of traffic. They had nice tracks, but there wasn't enough going on to stress the horse mentally. I could get the physical side of it done, but I couldn't get the mental side of it done. So I think you've got to go to a place like the training center, which has got 800 horses, or Keeneland, where they have somewhere between 4 and 1,000. And that's where you're going to get all the noise. It's busy. The barns are busy. The track is busy. There's lots of company to go with. You got a good gate crew, and that's where you build condition. You really get the daily breeze. Okay, that's a picture of what a shed row looks like at Keeneland. Unfortunately, that's the big barns. Even that, you've got horses going all the time. It's not unusual for a young horse that just came in off the farm to have 500 or 600 horses walk by him a day. That's because there's 40 horses in the barn, and when they're cooling them out, they're all going to go by him over and over and again. The older barns at Keeneland, the aisles are half that width. So the horses going around inside are practically rubbing noses with the horses in the stall. It's a very stressful situation compared to being on a farm. This is a picture of Mark Hubley. Some of his horses going up in sets, and these are babies. They've got halters on them, and that's Mark sitting there in the background. And that's what they've got to get used to, this big, scary track and this big, gigantic grandstand.